I know I'm about a week late, almost a week late to this, but I wanted to wait a couple days to see what everyone had to say about it so I can get absolutely everything in here in case I missed anything. And I think it's time, alright? I think it's time to cover it. So it's going to be an in-depth trailer analysis for the side order trailer that we got during the direct. So I'm very excited to start this. It first opens up with Agent 8 and the Pearl Drone in Inkopolis Square. And Inkopolis Square actually looks a lot different from how it did in the first trailer, but I will get to that in a second. Now the first couple shots are just Agent 8 and Pearl in the square. But the next thing we see is Agent 8 flying with the Pearl Drone inside the Spire of Order, it looks like. And you can see her holding on to the Pearl Drone with one hand and the dualies in the other hand. And even in the back here, there's some type of conveyor belt creating different things. And one of them is of note, but I will get to that in a second. Here we can see what looks like to be a mem cake being created. And I've already made a couple theories on this trailer, and I have a couple more to make. But as we know, mem cakes are the compressed memories of the Kamado-ko test subjects from Octo Expansion. So I already have a theory that Commander Tartar is back and is the main villain of Side Order, and he could be trying to sanitize Octarians or someone else. He can be trying to sanitize again or something else, but this is very clearly looks like a mem cake. So this could be Agent 8's memories again for some reason, or it could be Marina's or someone else. We don't really know, but I'm not going to be too heavy speculative in this video. This is just a trailer analysis. Now in this scene we can see a portal, which is where all of these dead fish spawn from, right? Emphasis on the dead fish because that can play into it. And we see on the walls here, we actually can see what looks like portals. So perhaps the tower itself is corrupted. Maybe the Spire of Order is just like a regular tower, but it is under Commander Tartar's influence, so it's starting to erode away, I guess. And we have to stop him before he destroys the world like he wanted to in Octo Expansion. And on the ceiling up here, you can see like this black, oozy, liquidy type of texture up here. So maybe one of the floors will be upside down. That'd be pretty cool. It would kind of make some people sick, but it would be a cool idea if you could choose in like an upside down level. And here in the middle there is this black portal which all the dead fish are spawning out of, we can see here. And the fish themselves actually look plastic. They look like toys. So they look like toys, so that could play into it somehow. We really don't know yet. But in this scene we can see Agent 8 stepping into a room of what seems to be full of like data and code running across or up along the walls, as well as her guns materializing. And this whole materialization plays a big part in the trailer. So there's a common theory that Side Order is just a simulation, and we are in a simulation or digital world or something of that nature. There's multiple instances of it throughout the trailer. You can see here, this is one of the biggest ones. The guns materializing out of nowhere, and all of this code, like binary, on the walls of Fire of Order. And now that we have a closer look at these dead fish here, you can kind of see that they do look plasticky. They kind of look like just plastic toys with these perfect circular, like round divots in them, and just they give off a whole plasticky look. And here we actually see our first instance of gameplay. We can still see those conveyor belts in the back creating all of those items, which could be mem cakes. And in one of them from the earlier scene, one of those items look like a DJ table, which could kind of tie into the whole Marina thing, that if Tartar is back and he's basically sanitized or brainwashed Marina to help him in his endeavors, or this could just be a digital recreation of Marina's preferred world. This multiple times throughout the Final Fest, and I think some interviews, Marina kept talking about how her dream world basically is off order. So, and we have yet to still see Marina anywhere in this trailer. So all of this could be in a digital simulation of Marina's preferred world or something like that. Again, there's a lot of speculation and theorizing here, but back to the trailer, we can see Agent 8 flying down on the Pearl drone, getting ready to fight these dead fish. And over here on the right, we can see some of those orange crates that are in the story mode. They usually have power eggs in them, and it looks like there's a booster ramp off to the left. We can barely see it out of frame. And as Agent 8 is flying down with the Pearl drone, it looks like the Pearl drone is getting ready to shoot off a bomb, maybe, or a mini killer whale or something. Later on in the trailer, we'll see that the Pearl drone actually does have its own subs and everything. So here it looks like the Pearl drone can help us fight. And here we are using the dualies. And in here is where we can see the biggest difference between Inkopolis Square. You can see right here side by side from the first trailer and this most recent trailer, it looks very different. The coral looks a lot more spread out and takes up more space. It doesn't look as chunky and blocky as the first one. And even the Spire of Order itself looks more of like a futuristic digital tower rather than the copied city from Nier Automata. So it's had a major overhaul within the 6 months since we've seen it, and we'll have to wait another half a year for the game to fully come out. But it's already looking very, very different, even Agent 8 herself. And now here we can see this is most likely the same room they were in that previous shot, although it looks different. We can clearly see the booster ramp here. And off to the left, you can actually see an elevator, which is where we presumably start the level at, since that is going to be our way from getting from floor to floor is through the elevator. And in this part right here, it looks like a piece of the Spire of Order is blown out. I haven't seen anyone talk about this, and I'm not sure what that is. Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong, but it looks like a hole is blown through the Spire of Order, or at least we can see like chunks of something flying off here. I'm not really sure what that is. In the next scene, we get a little glimpse at the Spire of Order itself, and it seems to be this white mysterious liquid oozing out of these pipes, and this could very well be the Primordial Ooze that Commander Tartar is working on. I'm really big into that theory that Commander Tartar is coming back and that he is the main villain, and he's still trying to fulfill his dream of wiping out Octarians and the Inklings, since he hates them so much. That's his like life goal, is to take them out and then use his Primordial Ooze to create the ultimate life form. So this very well could be the Primordial Ooze, because it looks more thicker and viscous than our ink. So this could be different, and I don't think they would show us just a random scene like this of regular ink spewing out of here. So this is obviously something of importance in Side Order. And here, this is probably one of my favorite parts of the entire trailer. Here, the elevator opens and we see Dead Fish in all of her amazing, beautiful 3D glory. Her 3D model looks amazing here. Because she does introduce herself as Oct. And Oct in German means 8. So there's still a lot of 8 references and symbolism throughout. We're playing as Agent 8, and Oct means 8 in German, because obviously an octoling. And the dialogue here is actually pretty interesting. So Pearl tells 8 to attack her, and she says, "Cool it, I'm not your enemy, just another bystander that got sucked in." So that part where she says sucked in is very interesting. So perhaps also she got sucked into this simulation that we're all in. And this could actually make sense, because yesterday Splatoon of North America actually dropped a tweet which kind of hints at this not actually being our Inkopolis square from Splatoon 2, as it reads, SRL order operatives checking in with a look at a sparse new setting for the side order DLC. Looks a lot like Inkopolis Square, plus some white coral substance and minus all the people. What and where is this place? Do they even turf war here? So this could just be some flavor text, but the part says it looks a lot like Inkopolis Square. And then the part where it says what and where is this place? Do they even turf war here? Kind of hinting that this isn't the actual Inkopolis Square that we're used to. This could be a completely different area or simulation dimension, whatever. So Deadfish saying that she got sucked in kind of plays into the theory that this could just be a simulation inside of maybe we're actually in Inkopolis Square, but we're in the simulation that's taking place in Inkopolis Square. That's why side order looks like that. Again, there's a lot of theorizing and speculation to go on with this, but Deadfish could also have something to do with the story, since the enemies we fight are dead fish, like literal dead fish. So maybe it's just a play on the name, or she could actually have something to do with it, because why is she here at all, even in the first place? I kind of theorized about that on my video about Tartar. I'm gonna link that in the description if you want to watch it, but I'm not going to spend too much time on speculating. And Deadfish here saying that her and Marina go way back actually kind of makes sense, since they are both Octarian DJs. It would make sense that they would somehow have crossed paths at one time, and maybe they even collab. So imagine if we get a song in Side Order with Deadfish featuring Marina, or Marina featuring Deadfish, or even just Off the Hook featuring Deadfish. That would actually be super cool, although I doubt. I hope we do get more Deadfish songs. I know people have talked about it already, but we are missing a couple songs from Deadfish. The numbering is all out of order. And then now here we get to see our first look at the main gimmick of Side Order, which is the color chips and the palette. And as we can see, there are 36 slots for this palette. So perhaps there are 36 floors, but there also might be more, and I will talk about that later on when we see more of the UI for this color palette. As we can see Agent 8 putting this blue color chip into the first slot of the palette, which gives us a power-up. And here we get to see our first part of actual in-game. So first, here's the floor. So this is going to be our main hub area per se for Side Order. And we can see for the levels, there are 3 levels we can choose from: easy, normal, and hard. Easy is called Spiraling Slope Floor with a reward of 90. Whatever the currency is in this DLC is different. It's not gold, it's not CQ points, it's something completely different and unique to Side Order. So as you'd expect, the harder the level, the more rewards we'll get, with 230 for the normal floor and 320 for the hard floor. And for this first floor, this red chip gives us splash damage. For the normal floor, called Exposed Winding Floor, gives us run speed up. And the hard floor, Sitting Duck Valley Floor, gives us Drone Splat Bomb. So that's also just confirming that the Pearl Drone does get a Splat Bomb, which is what she was probably using in that earlier clip. And speaking of the Pearl Drone, that palette that we saw, that palette that we are putting the color chip into, is called the Pearl palette, which we'll see in the next scene. And since it's called the Pearl palette, and we can see down here on the bottom right, there is a button we can press X to bring up the palette. Either that's just to bring up to the palette menu that we'll see in a second, or we could switch between palettes. So maybe there's a Pearl palette, Marina palette, Deadfish palette. Maybe we'll get different palettes which have a different, maybe we'll get different palettes, and different palettes allow us to get different abilities. Maybe the different palettes will increase our chance of getting different abilities, kind of like how the drink tickets work in base game. And we can see that in the next scene, which we will get to. But as for this, we just finished floor 15, and looks like we're going to floor 16 next. So there are quite a bit of floors in Side Order. And here, this is probably the most interesting frame in the entire side order trailer. Here we can see all the different types of chips and what they do. Each chip is color coded, so the red chips are power, which feature ink damage, splash damage, and main firing rate. The purple is support, which only has ink saver main as of now. Range increases our splash radius, and mobility, which shows swim speed up and also run speed up. Can't see it, but it is there. Now, the weapons that we're using as of this part in the game, we are using the new dualies with curling bomb and reef slider, and the pearl drone has splat bombs. And I don't know if it's for this specific floor, or maybe again it's for the pearl palette, since it probably is pearl palette because it's here with the rest of it. Common tones are the green and the purple. I'm not really sure what this bright green is for. Maybe that's a special type of boss color chip that you only get during bosses, or it could just be something else we haven't seen, since this is a pretty big scroll menu. And the second one is support. So we have a higher chance of getting this green color chip and support color chips with the pearl palette. So maybe the marina palette will get a higher chance of getting orange and blue chips, for example. And what's interesting about this is that even though we're only on floor 16, we're about to go to floor 16, we have 20 color chips. So perhaps every so many of floors we get a boss floor, which gives us 2 color chips, or we'll just randomly get more than 1 color chip on any given floor. Maybe there's a bonus, like saying clearing a floor in a certain amount of time will let you get another chip. Or it could work like how Xenoblade 3's Arc Sage Gauntlet works, considering they're both roguelikes, so they're very similar, like multiple floors and like a gauntlet of multiple floors fighting enemies. So perhaps it'll work like Arc Sage Gauntlet and Xenoblade 3, where you'll get a random chance of getting to choose 2 different whimsies, which are basically special events for the next wave. So perhaps between, randomly between each floor, we'll have a chance of choosing an extra color chip, more currency, a buff, or for the next floor only, or whatever. Since we have 20 chips here, but we're only going to floor 16 right now. So that's very interesting to see. There could be more than 36 levels. There could be less, since there are 36 slots, but we already have 20 at floor 16. So we got 4 extra chips somewhere, which means there could have been a boss every 4 floors. Since we are going to floor 16, we already have 4 extra. So 4 times 4, that's 20. So we could have a boss floor every 4 floors, or again, like I said, it could be random. We don't know. But it also looks like we are going to get different weapons too, and we're not just stuck with the dualies. And we might also be able to change our sub and special, although that's kind of a reach, but we will definitely be able to change our weapon. As again, in the tweet as well as on the official website, we can see the Agent 8 here, the female and the male. The female is wearing the dualies that we've seen, but the male Agent 8 has a stamper, one of the new order stampers, I guess, because we have the hero weapons in story mode. I guess these are the order weapons for side order. So we are going to be able to use different weapons, and the pearl drone will obviously also be able to use different bombs, I'm assuming. And one thing that's been a big point of contention within the fandom recently is this screen right here for the run speed up description. It says increases movement speed in Inkling and Octoling form. And as far as we know, we're only playing as Agent 8 throughout this, and she is an Octoling, so there's no reason for it to say Inkling here. So a lot of people are thinking maybe we'll be able to play as Inklings during this, but this could very easily just be them carrying over the text from base game, the run speed up text from base game, and putting it in here, and just haven't changed it yet since it's still early in development, and they just hadn't changed it by the time they showed us this trailer. It's very possible. It's a lot easier to just carry over what you already have and tweak it than create whole new text. So they probably just either forgot to change it or just haven't changed it by the time trailer. So I don't think that actually even means anything as everyone is thinking it is. And the increases for all of these buffs are different. Here we can see splash damage increases by 30% because it goes from 160 to 190. And we started at 100%. We have 3 picks right now. So that's 100, 130, and 160. We're going to 190. So if we get to the middle, that will be roughly 220. And maxed out, and it looks like the max will be 330 since we are going up by 30% every time. As we can see here for run speed, we go from 131% to 140. So it's different for each chip, or we could have some way to mess with the multiplier and change it. And we also have different amounts we can get for each. As we saw for splash damage, there are 9 slots, but for run speed and drone splat bomb, there are only 5. And here, as we can see, as I was saying earlier, for the splat bomb, the more we get, the lower our points go for it. Does allow the Pearl Drum to use splat bombs, multiple copies slightly reduce the required gauge, showing that we go from 180 to 160 if we pick up another drone splat bomb chip. So I think this is pretty cool because then you're going to have to actually think about which chips you want, and you can't just blindly choose a chip. So you have to think about which chip you want and what kind of build you want in order to run through this gauntlet for however many floors there are. And then for the next couple scenes, we see the more gameplay of the gauntlet. I can't believe I'm now just mentioning this, but we actually have damage numbers here to show how much damage we do. And a lot of people thought these were points or some type of secret point gauge that we haven't seen yet, but this is probably most likely damage, because if you remember, there are some colored chips to increase our damage. So this is just kind of like a visual way to let us know that we're doing more damage, so we can see the difference between the damage. And up in the top right corner, we can see a briefcase, which is used to give us extra armor throughout the story modes and Octo expansions. So we are going to be getting these briefcases to increase our armor. Maybe the armor stacks. Unlike the rest of the story modes and Octo expansion, we can grab one briefcase and that's like one thing of armor and we can't really stack them. So maybe since this is a roguelike and just a gauntlet of enemies, perhaps we could stack on our damage. Or maybe ink armor could make a return, since we do have splashdown in base game, in the story mode, and in here. So maybe they'll bring back some specials that we can only use in side order. Perhaps ink armor is one of them, because ink armor would make sense for a gauntlet roguelike type of thing like this. Here we can see Agent 8 using what seems to be a triple ink strike, and it looks like different specials have different pieces of armor, or perhaps these are just different pieces of armors we can pick up, because now she has to see like a visor over one eye with this antenna coming out of it that we don't see in others. And in other scenes in the trailer, we see her with different like outfits or armor, and even in some of them we can see the ghoulies have these like white light shield armor things around it, so perhaps we can power up our weapons as well. Maybe that's what those chips, they visually change the weapons as well as buffing them, so increased damage will get more of these lights around it. I'm not really too sure what these are, but it looks like we can modify our gear, at least our armor and our weapons. And a quick correction from earlier, I said that the red numbers are the Pearl drone doing damage, but if you can see right up here above the 240, there is a purple 100. Purple damage is the Pearl drone, while the white numbers are our damage. I'm still not too sure what those red numbers are. Maybe that's a special or a sub. I'm not too sure, and I'm sure you've already heard this, but right here we can see what looks to be like a suction bomb with Marina's face on it. So maybe this is her hyper bombs finished, because we know in Octo expansion those were just prototypes, so perhaps she was able to finish them and shrink them down. So this could be a hyper bomb that we can collect, or it just could be a suction bomb, but with a different redesign with Marina's face on them, because side order is apparently a different dimension or simulation. So anything is really possible in a simulation. You can just code it however you want, and these could have been created by Marina, maybe new type of suction bomb, or again could be her hyper bomb. Here we can actually see what I was talking about earlier with those different lines and everything going all across the guns and the armor. It looks like these rooms with all of this data going along the walls could be boss rooms, and with each boss we defeat, the weaker the connection becomes and the weaker the simulation gets until we get to Commander Tartar or Marina or whatever, and we defeat them. Then the simulation ends and we are saved, considering Deadfish said she was sucked in. So perhaps we're trapped in here and we have to defeat the boss at the top of the Spire of Order, which could be Tartar. Working with Orca, I have a theory on that, but I'll explain that in that video. So we could go up to the top of the tower, defeat Commander Tartar, and basically end the simulation and go back to our real reality. And these light rooms could just be rooms full of code that we have to kind of destroy, kind of like we're a virus destroying the code. That's a pretty cool idea that I like. In here we can see a clearer view of that light armor. I guess I'm just going to call it light armor from now because I'm not really sure what it is. You can also see a killer whale firing off from behind us that looks like it's coming in our direction. So apparently my laptop ran out of space around here when I was recording, so I recorded the rest of this video without even realizing it wasn't being picked up. But thankfully there's not that much left. So as I was saying, we can see a killer whale being shot off here. It's hard to tell if it's coming from the Pearl drone or it's coming from behind us. Maybe we activated the killer whale before running up this ramp, because we can see a splat bomb here that the Pearl drone most likely threw, but it also looks like the killer whale is coming from the Pearl drone. But the next scene after that is probably the most interesting in the whole trailer. Here we see our bodies materializing and then our soul floating into them, again with more of that light armor. So they are probably on a pretty high floor at this point. But this is also just kind of just playing into the theory that this is just a simulation, and we can see our bodies flying into we can see our souls flying into the body. Now I was thinking, what if after each floor our body like deconstructs and then our soul goes through some kind of network onto the next floor? But as I'm saying that, I realize we can just go through the elevator. That's how we get to each floor, is through the elevator. But then I thought, what if after each floor we kind of go into the network to like recover ourselves or send battle data? What if we are a test subject again and each floor is a test, and after each floor we like kind of upload ourselves to the network and upload our battle data into it, which goes back to Commander Tartar at the top, and he's using that battle data to kind of prepare his defenses and fight against us. So it's kind of a cool idea that we're unknowingly helping Commander Tartar to fight against us. We're kind of uploading our battle data to it, uploading our battle data to the system, which is helping out Tartar. That is, if he is the main villain. Again, that video will be in the description as well as the end card of this video if you want to learn more in depth about that whole theory. But after that we see this. So I'm not sure if this is the final boss or the first boss we see. And when I said earlier about the boss rooms could have been those like rooms with all that light with those lines of code running up and down the walls, that could still be the boss room, and we start on the outside, which is all of that, and then we walk on a bridge that leads into an open room like this. So this could still be the boss floor, that could still be the boss floor, just two sections of the same floor. But here we can see that this thing has faces on it, on some black ooze, and the eyes and the mouth kind of move similar to Commander Tartar, and they look similar to Tartar, which makes sense since he was also like once we found out he was Commander Tartar, after he was just a telephone, he has all of his Primordial Ooze on his face, and then the eyes and mouth moving all in different directions. Very similar to these, so perhaps he has something to do with it, and this is just even more hinting at, you know, more Tartar symbolism. And perhaps in the way to fight this boss is to use the Pearl Drone, and we can fly around on the Pearl Drone and shoot the faces down, since they're obviously too high for us to reach normally. So perhaps there will be like Pearl Drone combat, because why else would those boost rails be there in the earlier floors, unless we can use one of the boost pads and fly around on the Pearl Drone and have her fire off bombs we can shoot while we're flying on her. Kind of like the paraglider in Breath of the Wild or Tears in the Kingdom. We can use the paraglider while flying through the air. We can use the Pearl Drone to move around this big structure and fight the boss. That would be very interesting and a very cool idea. Now after that, the last few seconds of the trailer has this like eerie music with all of this black ink that looks to be spreading somewhere, kind of like a virus. So it's kind of playing into it. Maybe all of these dead fish enemies are the virus, and they're starting to corrupt the tower, the Spire of Order, and like the whole network and system that it's based on. So perhaps Commander Tartar captured and brainwashed Marina, taken over the Spire of Order, and all of his dead fish enemies kind of corrupting the tower and the network that all of it's connected to, which is why we saw all those black portals throughout the trailer. So that's a pretty cool idea, and this music is very eerie. It really sounds familiar. It sounds like something we've heard before, but I can't quite tell what it is. It kind of sounds like a Dead Fish song, but not really. So perhaps Dead Fish also is playing into it, and she's deceiving us, and she is being controlled by Tartar, and her full sanitization got to her. It's kind of a stretch. I'm not really sure. Again, we don't really know what's going on. They intentionally didn't show us much of the story, so anything is really possible at this point. But yeah, that's really it for the trailer. That's where it ends off at. So again, I'm probably hella late on this, but it's better to do it now than to not do it at all. So I mean, here I am. If we get any more information, I'll definitely cover it. We've had a couple tweets on Twitter, but that's all for information that we already know from the website or the trailer. So if there's any new information, I will be covering that and making videos on it. But yeah, that's really about it. So see you next mission and play some goddamn Splatty.